Welcome back to the Coolbet Canada Podcast. Yes, I know it's been a few weeks. It's been very busy here in Ontario, here in Coolbet as well. Pat Gregoire here with Jake Bowen-Moss and Coolbet Chris Abbott. Fellas, it's good to be back here. As I mentioned, super busy. And Chris, you were actually down in Florida not too long ago, heading out with our newest ambassador, the ambassador of Cool, Andre DeGrasse.
Yeah, we had to get some ink on the paper. So I'm fortunate enough that we traveled to see Andre. Got a taste of the Florida sun, but it was a pretty quick in and out. I will tell you this though, we're marketing him as cool, and his marketing is cool. He's just a great guy, super chill. Really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit, and I'm really excited for some of the things that we're going to do together.
He's 1-0 or 0-1 on his picks. I know he took the Raptors in game 3 in their series, but that's just because he's so proud to be from Toronto, so proud to be a Canadian. And that's a big reason why we partnered with them. But Chris, you mentioned some of the things that we do have planned. Is there anything that you can give away, or are we keeping things a little tight-lipped here?
Oh, let's just say that well, I can't say where we're gonna have some some commercials, some video shoots with him. We'll have some different types of content. It's a 3-year partnership, which takes us through the next Olympics, and then if he decides he's going to go back for another Olympics, then the deal is open to be picked up again. So we're really happy to have him on board, and he did meet the Cool Bear on the weekend. So those guys have a little bit of a budding relationship going on there. I don't know if it's going to be adversarial or friendly, but we'll see.
Yeah, I heard the Cool Bear's been in a little hibernation. Where's the Cool Bear been hiding out there, Chris?
Well, hey, listen, the Cool Bear's been a little bit everywhere. The Cool Bear, it's funny. When we were there, we had this like an RV, like a trailer, like studio trailer or whatever. And the guy who was driving it was telling some stories about all the different groups that had rented it. And he said, Disney was using it one time. Obviously, he's right there in Central Florida. And they had the Mickey Mouse costume. And the deal is you're never allowed to see the Mickey Mouse costume unless it's on somebody. And they had it in the head in a cardboard box, but the box wouldn't fit through the door on the bus. And there was like wide panic from the Disney people because they're like, well, how are we going to get this in for the person to get dressed? We can't let the Mickey head be seen. I'm still not entirely sure how they got around that. I don't know if they put up like a shower curtain outside or whatever, but so I hate talking about the Cool Bear when it's in a bag or whatever. But because we had no events in Ontario for a long time, the Cool Bear was just hanging out in the mascot store for a really, really long time with the other mascots. And now the Cool Bear resides downtown.
Wait, it's not an actual real bear?
I mean, he was in hibernation in a cave off Dufferin Street.
That's what I was getting at. I was trying to tee you up there, Chris.
Chris, before we get rolling into things, obviously we got to talk about our guest, and it was an awesome conversation we had with David Amber, host of Hockey Night in Canada, and of course NHL on Sportsnet. Guy's an absolute pro. We could have been talking to him for hours upon hours. We'll have to have him back on again, but we talked a little bit about his career, a little bit about sports gambling in his industry, and of course talked a little bit about the playoffs, which is just down the road. But Jake, I know, and Chris, actually you guys as well, both of you have been to a few Blue Jays games so far this season. Chris, obviously season ticket holder. I haven't been out to the ballpark yet, but I'm all in on this Blue Jays team. I think we talked about it maybe a month and a half ago. We kind of had tempered expectations for this team. Are we throwing those out and we're just thinking that this is a championship team, or we still going with level headeds here? Chris, you can start.
I can start. Okay. Championship, they're going to need to get some more depth. With the way baseball is, there's always guys hurt on your roster. Right now, Teoscar Hernandez, Danny Jansen hurt. Was at the game yesterday. Vladdy, I think it was his first day off all year, which, well deserved. And so you got a lineup that was Springer, Bichette, Gurriel, Tapia, Chapman, Kirk, Espinal, Cato, Zimmer. And that's not going to win you many championships. But we also had the big hoss on the mound and Alec Manoah. So I think, a little more depth is needed, or a little more consistency from the depth guys they have. And middle relief is going to be an issue. If starters get in trouble, Trevor Richards can only throw in so many games, and Tim Mesa can only throw in so many games. So, I mean, every team wants bullpen depth. But the Jays are certainly going to need to add some. Front end of the pitching staff, great. Back end of the pitching staff, fantastic. Middle relief is probably somewhere where they'll look to upgrade. But I got to say, this Gosuke Kato, I don't know if I'm saying his name properly.
Close
I
enough.
love this guy. Like he's like I can't call him 5-tool because I don't think he hits for power, but he's a good defender. He can run. He's a great teammate. And I don't know, maybe it's and he's got a Japanese name, but from what I understand, he was born and raised in California. But it must just be the culture, because he brings those Munenori Kawasaki vibes to the team. Like, everybody loves him. He's a grinder. He goes out and gets the job done. Remains to be seen if he's as silly as Kawasaki was, but I know he's active online and stuff like that. So really, really, really like this guy. So he and Espinal are like, you guys know I fall in love with the bottom 6 forwards. They're the fourth line grinders. Espinal and Cato are my grinders on that Jays team. I really like them.
Yeah, Espinal, I've been so pleasantly surprised and love how good he's been this year. Jake, is there maybe a surprise or something that we obviously knew the big names was what everyone was expecting coming into this, but is there maybe a player or two or that you kind of have been gravitating to as a Jays fan?
Yeah, you've teed me up perfectly. I'm a Zach Collins guy through and through. He walks out to Broadway Girls, Morgan Wallen. He's probably definitely my kind of guy, and he's been solid. Strung together some good games, hit some home runs. And just to know we have that catcher depth. Now we got Collins, Jansen, obviously, like we said, on the IL. We have Moreno coming up, Kirk, and then we have this Heineman guy who's not bad. I mean, he can fill in when we need him to. I'm imagining they're going to ship off one of those guys when we do need a depth bat or a depth middle relief. If Nate Pearson can get healthy, I'm sure that could help with the middle relief that Kris was talking about. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this team at full health is going to be a problem. It's just a matter of, can we keep this team at full health? We saw Vladdy take the ball off the foot the other game. I think he'll be all right. Vladdy's a pretty tough guy. Teo, it sounds like he might be back next week, so that'd be good for the team. I haven't heard much about Jansen, but like I said, we're okay in terms of the catching standpoint right now. It's just a matter of getting those consistent bats near the bottom of the lineup so we can turn it over for the big boys up top. But I've had a lot of fun. I've been to 2 games. The atmosphere is great. The Romano walkout, I tweeted about it the other night. It's my favorite new thing at the ballpark. I know they've set it up just for him because he's like when he comes into close, but the lights go real dim and then they got the red flashing with the maple leaf, and he walks out, and it's just like, I don't know, if you're an opposing batter standing in the box, I don't think I want to go up against Romano in a stage like that, especially when the fans are rocking. So I got lucky. I happened to be there for that 5-2 comeback, 6-5 in the bottom of the 10th. I know Kris was there as well. Cannot leave the ballpark with this team's playing. Even if it does end in a loss, you cannot leave the ballpark, because we saw what happened with game 1, and then we saw what happened the other night. So I love the Jays. I love them.
Call an ambulance, but not for me. That's the Blue Jays motto this year. They're never out of a game with those bats. And I'll be honest, like, through and through, love the Blue Jays. Been watching them since I can remember. But at the start of the season, it usually takes me a little bit to get going and really, dive in. I'll watch the first few games and be all in. And then, you got Raptors playoffs, you got the Leafs playoffs. And then once those teams usually get bounced, then I'll start to get back into things. But with how good they've been, with how entertaining they've been, I've been all in, and I've been, my couch has been taking an absolute beating with all the Toronto content that has been going on. I know the Raptors were recently bouncing out of the first round. The Leafs are getting ready for their playoff swing, but it's a good time to be a Toronto sports fan. Maybe not for the Raptors this year, but going forward, future certainly bright.
I think with the Raptors too. I mean, they weren't expected to win. We were all at game 3. You guys had seats in the Coolbet Lounge. I didn't get access to that, but it was, they should have won that game, and then potentially are up 3-2 coming home last night. So, you know, they weren't as far out of it as some people might want to, you know, look at the end of the day. Oh, the Raptors lost 4-2 in the first round. You know, they were playing without Fred then, and Scotty Barnes missed, you know, the first half of the series. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. And you guys know I'm a very casual basketball fan. But there's some really good pieces there. Like OG Anunoby is turned into a legit player. Yeah, I think Fred needs a little bit more support in the backcourt. And then, you know, they need a big man. That was evident, very painfully evident. They need, you know, even when they won, I guess Serge Ibaka was the biggest guy they have. But they need, when they go up against
they had Marcus Gasol.
And Marcus Gasol, right, to defend.
That one helped a lot.
Yeah. So you need that guy. Especially when it's playoffs and it's, you know, banging down under the net and all that stuff.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, go ahead, Jake.
Sorry, Pat. I was just going to say, I sent something out to my buddies the other day. The future of Toronto sports, you keep these guys around, it's looking great. I mean, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, that's a nice young core. I think all up 25 and under. Manoah, Bichette, Vladdy, all 25 and under. And then Gary Trent, OG, and Scotty Barnes, all 25 and under. Scotty Barnes is 20 years old. And he looked like a pro all season long. So he's only going to get better. And like you said, the future of the city is bright. You keep these guys around, and we're going to be winning games at least for a long time. Hopefully a few championships sprinkled in there too.
Alec Manoah is so good, man. I used to coach hockey with a guy, and we'd go to St. John's Ice Caps games at the time when they were the Winnipeg Jets farm team. And he has this pet peeve, like, I will never wear another man's name on my back. Like, that was his thing. I will never wear another man's name on my back. And I kind of adopted that, but I might have to wear an Alec Manoah shirt every chance I get. Like, he's everything you want in a baseball player, right? He's like, no excuses. He's very like Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer to me. Different pitcher than those guys, but the mentality. I just love the mentality. You know, he's cool. He's calm. Give me the ball. Let me go do it. No excuses. And I feel like he'd be fun to have a bear with too.
Yeah, I think he walked someone yesterday, and he was just livid. He holds himself to a high standard, and you love to see it from a guy like that. Like, guy you need. Like, you step up in a big game, we need a win. All he does is win. They keep showing the stats on the TV here, like 4-0 in his 4 starts this season. Dates back to like 8 straight wins in his last 8 starts. I mean, guys are nuts.
Yeah, so I had over 6.5 strikeouts yesterday, and with 1 out in the 3rd inning, he only had 1 strikeout. I was like, oh shit! And then he mowed down the next 4, and I don't know if he might have finished with 8 or 9. I don't know what the number was, but it was certainly over 6.5. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I saw Josh Goldberg yesterday of Sportsnet tweeted out he's given up 3 or few runs in 20 of his 24 career starts. Like, that is insane. Absolutely insane. And yeah, Jake, you nailed it, man. It's crazy. It's a good time to be a Toronto sports fan, especially, you know, maybe not this year or the year after. Like, I'm talking for a long time. And the Big Hoss, I'll give it to you, Chris. It's a good nickname. It's a great nickname. It fits perfectly. But Manoah, it is. I gotta agree with JD. It's just such a good last name. I kind of like that too. But the Big Hoss, because that's what he is.
Well, why don't we get? If Chris doesn't want to wear another man's name on the back of the jersey, why don't we get Chris a Blue Jays number 6 with the Big Hoss on the back? And then we know who it is. It's a custom, the Big Hoss, you know?
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, that's like perfect.
That is.
Chris is walking around. Chris is sitting in his season seats with number 6 Big Hoss jersey. Like, come on. That'd be pretty awesome.
I feel like people would start calling me. They'd be like, this guy calls himself the Big Hoss.
Hey. I mean, that's what makes it so funny.
Yeah, Jersey foul on 100 trillion, but that needs to happen. That absolutely needs to happen.
Here's the other thing. We do, like, you know, like the judges' chambers in New York. We get like this big cardboard cutout. We call it Manoah's Ark, and we're all on it. So I don't know.
I love that.
That could be bad too. I don't know.
I love it.
We need something though. We need something, man. This guy deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. And David Amber deserves no intro because you will be watching a lot of him. And he is quite the career in the broadcasting industry. And that's where we started our conversation with the host of Hockey Night in Canada and, of course, NHL on Sportsnet. David Amber joins us next. welcome on host of the NHL on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. And of course, friend of the brand, David Amber. David, thanks for coming on today, buddy.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
No problem at all. We're excited to get you on, and it's at the perfect time for NHL hockey fans, of course. The playoffs just right around the corner. But before we get into that, we wanted to talk a little bit about your road to where you got. And I mentioned host of Hockey Night in Canada. You growing up in Toronto, being a Canadian, it's got to be a dream come true to be able to sit at that desk and host Hockey Night in Canada.
Pat, it's weird, right? Like, this is what I grew up doing. I grew up on, like most kids, I was talking in the 70s, but I'd be watching Hockey Night in Canada with my parents. And on a Saturday, it used to come on at 8:00, right? It used to just be one game at 8:00. So we had to wait. And I'd get sent to bed when I was like 5, 6 years old after the second period. I was so angry all the time. But now to be out there and be part of it, first of all, it touches Canadians in a way that most things don't. There's such a great passion for hockey, and there's such an enthusiasm, and it has so much rich history, the show, the brand, and really bringing families together, bringing communities together. So to be part of that, like, honestly, it's the greatest privilege ever. I consider it a responsibility too. Like, we take it really seriously. You want to be prepared, and you want to have the information, you want to entertain, you want to do all those things. But most, telling on my mind is always just like, wow, this is so cool. I look around the studio and go, wow, this is such a privilege to be a part of this.
And David, you covered a lot of bases kind of coming into now where you are with Sportsnet. It looks like you covered college football and MLB, NBA, kind of everything. Is there a favorite sport you had? I know obviously Hockey Night in Canada, like you said, nothing really beats it, or maybe just like the most underrated one to cover and kind of on your way up to here?
Yeah, well, Jake, first of all, I've been so lucky because I think variety, I'm a big sports fan, period. So I like all those things. And I've had, great luck to be at some really cool events. I think maybe nothing has trumped being at the Olympics. I mean, when you're at the Olympics, it's such an international event, and you can kind of wear that Canadian pride as well. I was fortunate back in 2000 to be in Australia. And then in 2002, I was there for both the men's and women's gold medal hockey championships. For Canada, it was their first gold in men's hockey in 50 years. So that was incredible. And then I was in Sochi in 2014 and in Rio in 2016. So I just really, to be part of those spectacles and to be able to witness that and what it means to those athletes. Like, what's cool about what I do now is when you get to the Stanley Cup final and you see these guys living out their dreams and they hoist the cup and that's it. When you're at the Olympics, for every athlete, that's their Stanley Cup. That's the final, rung, all the time they put in getting up to go to the pool at 5 a.m. or rowing or whatever they were into, gymnastics. They've been doing this for a long time since they were little kids. And to have all of that work pay off and they get to the pinnacle of what they're doing. And then for me to be able to sort of witness it and interview some of the athletes at their finest moments and they're celebrating their greatest professional achievements, it's awesome. So I'd say the Olympics is probably the most fun event and meaningful event that I've ever had a chance to be lucky enough to cover.
Well, David, you've been on our collective TV screens for a long time now, probably as long as most of us can remember. Also, you don't age, which is absolutely wild to me. And we're talking about some of the summit type things that you've done, but it's from three guys who have had varying degrees of touch points with the broadcast industry and know just how hard it is to kind of get in the door and make your way. I'm interested to know a little bit more about your story and how you entered the broadcasting world, because you don't just show up at the Olympics. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the gig and then some of the people that have helped you along the way?
Well, it's a really good question, Kris. I'll try not to drag it too far down a rabbit hole, but I grew up here in Toronto, and my dad was executive producer of news specials at CBC. So he would cover things like the Olympics, like the royal wedding, the Pope visit, and a ton of election coverage. So I got exposed to the TV industry, at a young age. And I remember going into the control room, like into the truck, and it would be complete chaos, right? Live TV is nuts. And it'd be like these shows where they're 4, 5, 6 hours long, like a federal election show. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Like, it was intense, but it was very cool. And I didn't think I could handle it in the behind the scenes. That's like the nervous center. That's where all the brains is. But I thought, being out in the studio where it could be calm, cool, collected, and just have fun, that would be more an area of strength for me. And also, being in sports, I didn't want to be in hard news. So I sort of was exposed to it as a kid, went off to university, and around halfway through my time at McGill University, I said, yeah, I do really want to get into sports broadcasting. So started, applying myself a little bit in that direction. I went back to school, went to Syracuse University, and got a master's degree in broadcast journalism, because I went there because they had, the Bob Costases and the Marv Alberts and, Steve Koppel, like they've had, Ted Koppel, Steve Croft. They've had so many big sort of well-known broadcasters came out of there. So I thought that'd be a good place to go and learn the business really ins and outs. And it was a great experience. And then I had a year visa to work in the States, guys. And here's the best part. Well, it wasn't the best part. It was the worst part, I guess. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll get a job in the States. This is going to be, how difficult can it be? So I'm sending out tapes to Bangor, Maine, and Joplin, Missouri, and Jackson, Mississippi, and Redding, California. Rejection. I got one letter back, and I think it was Bangor, Maine, to be the weekend sports anchor. Entry-level job, like paying nothing, and you're in Bangor, Maine. I'm no disrespect to Bangor, Maine, but I'm not sure how great it is. And so I get a letter back saying, oh yeah, we saw your tape, we liked it. We had 142 different tapes, and we've chosen someone else. And I remember I was just like, oh my God, I may never get a job in this industry. So I came back to my parents' house in Toronto, and I started driving around Ontario. And long story short, I started kind of meeting up with news directors and handing out tapes. And I met up with this one news director in Sudbury, and he said, look, we don't have anything here for you, but I'll certainly pass your tape along. And I said, okay. And at this point, I'd faced a lot of rejection. We're talking like 10 minutes worth. And I started thinking, this might not pan out. About a month and a half later, I get a call from Tony Rima, who's the news director in Sault Ste. Marie. And he asked me to come up and said, would you like to do an audition? And I got off the phone with him, and I said, of course. He's like, can you come tomorrow for an audition in Sault Ste. Marie? I'm like, of course I can. I hang up the phone. I go, Mom, where's Sault Ste. Marie? Like, I'm this dumb Toronto kid. I have no idea. And this is before the internet. So I'm like whipping through a map, and it's like a 7-hour drive. I'm like, oh my God. So I jumped in the car, drove out there. Lucky enough, I got the job, and that was my foot in the door, which is what I really needed. And thankfully, I'd interned at TSN and CTV National News. I'd done some internships. I'd made some relationships. And so when I got the job in Sault Ste. Marie, I kept saying, I'm going to keep bugging you with some tapes. So I was sending tapes to TSN and sending tapes to all these different networks, trying to kind of, move up the ladder. And thankfully, after about 9 months, I got a call from Keith Pelly, who was at the time the head of TSN Sports. And he said, hey, how would you like to go out to Calgary and be our TSN reporter in Calgary? And honestly, like, that's like kind of getting the call from, single A baseball, which was great in Sault Ste. Marie because I learned a ton and I had to go out and do a ton of stuff, but getting a call like, oh my God, to the majors almost. And I couldn't believe it. I was just thrilled, and then sort of took off from there. So I was super lucky. Timing played a big role, and I faced a lot of rejection, which I guess is part of the process, but it was well worth it.
So I hear persistence and making sure that you kept your face in front of enough people to say, hey, this Amber kid really wants it, and he's not bad. Let's give him a shot.
Yeah, I mean, people have to take a leap of faith with you. And I was fortunate enough that I think I pushed. I was trying not to be too obnoxious about it, but I was like, please give me a chance, and kind of hat in hand, like, please, I'll do anything. And, I tell that when people come to me and sort of say, I want to get into business, I said, be willing to take whatever you can take. I was volunteering at Rogers TV, Cable 10 TV, and doing just kind of trying to hone my ability as best I can. And I went out to Sault Ste. Marie, and I was so lucky they took a chance on me. And it was very cool, guys. It was Joe Thornton's draft year. So Joe Thornton was the star of the Greyhounds. And I was there actually covering news and weather, and they'd let me do sports when the regular sports guy wasn't in. And thankfully, he called out sick quite a bit. So I think he liked to golf or whatever. So I was always just jumping in and going, hey, here I am. So I got to cover Joe Thornton in his year, and he get drafted in June, first overall, obviously, by Boston. And I was there for all that. So it was really cool. It's actually been fun to watch Joe in this incredible, I always knew he was going to be a star, but my God, who thought he would be one of the greatest players, we've ever seen, and one of the greatest passers, and maybe he'll finish his career with a Stanley Cup in a couple months, who knows? But it was, I was lucky. You're right, Chris. I knocked on a lot of doors, and I was ready to take some rejection. And I was lucky. My parents didn't charge me rent. They let me just kind of crash out at their house. And then, they were supportive, which not everyone has that. So I don't take that for granted. A lot of people helped along the way.
No, you're absolutely right that not everyone has that support. And I think most of us would say that the parents and the family and the community that we grow up in is certainly a big part of that. So that's an awesome story. I think it's inspirational. I think that it's a good teaching ground for people today. I know I have a young man in my life. He used to be a neighbor of ours back when I lived in Newfoundland, and I watched him grow up. And his dad told me that he said, Matthew's finishing university, and he said, "Oh yeah, what are you going to do?" And he said, "Well, I think I'm going to just get into management." And it was like, no, you don't just get into management. You kind of got to work your way through that a little bit. So
That's true.
I found that to be.
Our postman's here. My dog's freaking out. I'm going to grab her. Okay.
Okay.
Hold on.
It's not the first time we've had barking dogs on this podcast. So
I noticed your dog there in the background there, Patty.
Can you believe this? This dog makes that sound?
Yes, I can.
Right? Relax, sweetie.
Yeah,
yes,
sorry,
I can.
I definitely can believe it.
I used to have 2 miniature dachshunds that made a ton of noise. So we were gonna go from kind of your story about how you got into the industry and all the things that you've seen over the years to the point now where this is a sports betting company and a sports betting podcast at its core. There was a time when it was taboo and people didn't talk about it. And now it's saturated to the point that even people in the industry are like, oh, this might be too much. How have you noticed that progression? And has it been a very noticeable, like, no, we're not going to talk about this now. Yes, please talk about it all the time. And as somebody who does dabble in betting from time to time, what's your relationship with it? How do you feel about it all?
Yeah, I mean, those are great questions, Chris. And for starters, yes, it's been a dramatic change. There was a certain, taboo and stigma surrounding gambling and sports betting for a long time. And, it's funny, I'm sure people, whether it was in the Caribbean or in the UK, would kind of look at North America as real prudes when it came to these sorts of things. And it's funny what we allow in sports television. I grew up in an era where you would watch a hockey game and there would be every ad would be a beer ad. And every second ad would be a beer ad, and every other ad would be a cigarette ad. So, there's always been these sort of temptations, and I'm not likening gambling to necessarily smoking cigarettes, but my point is there's always been that line and that delineation of like, well, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And here we are, and the walls come crashing down. And I think we've seen first and foremost that there is a distinct appetite for some people to increase their interest in a game by having hopefully a very responsible wager, on a game. And, it heightens everything. I like to golf with my buddies and we always have a fun time. And I like to, all right, closest to the pin, $5, something. It doesn't change my whole outlook in golfing, but it adds a little wrinkle to it. It makes it more fun and more exciting. And I think that's the idea of sports gambling is you already love X team and now you can be behind that team supporting them, or whatever. I love this player, or I think this player is great, or whatever the case may be. It just adds another wrinkle to it. As far as the oversaturation, time will tell. And that's a great question, because I do wonder, with so many players in the field, can they all survive? Or is it going to be, is there a way to monetize every single different outlet now with, I don't think everyone's gambling. I know they're not. So how is this going to work? There's only, X amount of money to go around. So how is this going to work? I'm interested to see, who the survivors will be and how this works. And at this point, we just have to, I think, figure out as broadcasters how to nuance this in a way that we're not alienating certain viewers, or it's done in a way where there's information added and it adds to the excitement, but it's not taking over our broadcast. So I think that's something we're figuring out.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think for people who aren't interested in betting, and there's many of them, they're like, what happened to my broadcast? I don't care about this. And also, it's a little bit confusing to learn about when you start learning about money lines and spreads and totals, and how can you have half a goal and all these things. And they're valid questions. And I think companies like ours are have the responsibility as well to try and educate people about it. But to your point about, back in the day, yeah, it was a Players Light ad and a Molson Canadian ad. And, it was the Labatt Breyer at one point. And we had, a lot of car racing sponsored by cigarette companies. And I do think there is parallels to be drawn, right? They're the sins of drinking and smoking and gambling and whatnot. And even cannabis now, modern day. And there are advertising restrictions. And I think we will get to a point here in Canada as well, where we do see some curbs on that. Because as I mentioned, we're one of the advertisers, but there's so many, and everywhere you look right now, it's almost like you're living in Las Vegas. It's like you're driving down the Gardner, it's like the Las Vegas Strip all of a sudden. So I do think we will see that, and I do think we'll see consolidation in the players in the industry as well. You're right. There's I don't know, 15 or 20 regulated sites in Ontario right now, with more to come. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, again, I'll relate it to the cannabis industry here in Toronto. My block has 2 cannabis stores. That's not sustainable either. And a lot of people's blocks do. So it will be interesting to see how those things shake themselves out over time. But I guess that's our little bit of capitalism here, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I think we'll have to find that happy medium where, again, we want to make, as a broadcaster, we want to make this enjoyable. This is supposed to be an escape for people. This is supposed to be, they can sit down, relax, and enjoy their favorite team, their favorite player, their favorite sport, the event, right? And we're supposed to just bring that excitement, bring the enthusiasm, because there's an ingrained sense of passion, right? If you've been a Montreal Canadian fan for 30 years, we don't have to sell you on the game. You already want to watch the Habs play or the Leafs or whomever. And we don't want to, as you say, over inundate them with something that maybe isn't of interest to them. So I do think we're gonna have to find a way to nuance this where the information's there, and obviously it's important for us because it's a pretty big industry and something that's going to be a big revenue stream, I imagine, for the broadcasting industry, not just at our place, but really everywhere. You're seeing it, as you mentioned, Kris, and we just have to find a way to make it digestible and understandable and relatable to people, and also do it in a responsible way. And I'm glad you brought that up. Like, it's not a matter of, all right, go out there and spend all your money, go gamble away. It's more like, if you want to, enhance your experience, here's an option. And if it's something you're interested in, do it in a responsible way. And that's great, and enjoy it. And hopefully we can provide some information that will help you be successful. And if you don't, by all means, don't. Just like when you're kind of watching other ads, if you don't want to drink beer, you're not going to drink beer. So I think we have to kind of treat it in that same way.
Yeah, and then, if there's a night where it's the only game on TV is Arizona against, I don't know, the Anaheim Ducks, then yeah, maybe gambling on it makes it a little more palatable for some people out there. Jake, I know you had a question.
Yeah, just one more thing on the gambling side before we get into some hockey here. I noticed before we hit all these regulations and stuff, you would always throw in a little comment here and there, maybe about an over or about a first period line or something like that. Was that something you got direction on? Like, hey, mix in a gambling comment here? Or was that something you decided to do on your own? Like, okay, this is who I am. So I just want to mix this in kind of within the broadcast.
Well, Jake, first of all, thank you for watching. We appreciate that. Secondly, no, we never given directives in that fashion at all. Honestly, a lot of my buddies, put wagers here and there, and I think also I do a lot of the segments with Elliot. Elliot wagers a little bit. I wager a little bit. I mean, it's something we just do. And so to be able to say, oh yeah, maybe they're closing in on the over, or, wow, I hope you had that Matthews prop bet, or whatever the case may be, or Matthews is solidifying his case to be the MVP, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you look at it through the lens of someone who also does some recreational wagering on the side. So, Brent Musburger has been talked about doing this for 30 years now. And when I was down at ESPN, it's funny, we would laugh about it because he would sort of, in a very nuanced way, just bring that in. Oh, and Ohio State now is covering the spread. And we kind of just work that into the broadcast. You go, oh, that's interesting. You want to, I think you have to be authentic. That's something that I've been told and I've thought for a long time. I can't try and emulate this person or that person. I've got to be the best version of me I can be. And if that includes a couple of, little information, lines here and there regarding gambling, so be it. So that's what I do.
That last touchdown helped some interested viewers at home is another line that I always love hearing as well. But as Jake said, we want to get into the playoffs. It's going to be a busy run for you with Sportsnet, I know. And as we did say, wagering makes the game's a little more exciting, although I don't know if you need anything more exciting than playoff hockey. But with that being said, it's going to be an awesome playoffs. And I think with 2 markets here in Canada, there is a ton of pressure for a couple teams to make it out of the first round. But I want to ask you, who has more pressure to win a first round series? Is it Toronto or Edmonton?
Well, first I'll say, you said two markets. Listen, fans in Calgary remember 4 years ago, they won their division. They were the top seed in the West, and they lost in 5 games to Colorado. They haven't forgotten that. So there's probably 3 markets with some level of pressure. And the other reason Calgary has a bit of pressure is, there was a lot of talk last offseason. What are they going to do with Johnny Gaudreau? What are they going to do with Johnny Gaudreau? They decided to stay with Johnny Gaudreau, who's, in my opinion, one of the Hart finalists. And that was a great move. But if they lose in the first round, and then they might lose Johnny Gaudreau and get nothing for him, that would be a really hard pill to swallow for them. So there's that level of pressure in Calgary. As far as Toronto and Edmonton are concerned, that's a tough one. I think I would say there's more pressure in Toronto. And the reason I would say that is simply because for 5 straight years, they've had these incredibly heartbreaking losses. They've had 7 elimination games in this stretch, and they've lost all of them. And that might date back actually to like 2013 when they had that 4-1 lead against Boston. But regardless, they've had opportunities to move on. The last 2 years on home ice, games 7 and game 5 against Columbus, and they haven't been able to. And it's just there's just so much intense scrutiny from the fan base, from the media, that I think there's maybe a bit of a heightened pressure here. At least Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers can say they've won a playoff round, in the last 20 years. The Leafs haven't done that since 2004, and they've won a playoff round, the Oilers have, since Connor McDavid's been there. And you also have to remember, the Leafs have been on this, pretty consistent run all year. I think they have the 4th best record in the NHL this year, franchise record points and wins. Edmonton, before they fired Dave Tippett, were in this crazy stretch of 2 wins in 15 games. They were 5th in the Pacific. The season was kind of hanging by a thread. So I think the expectations were tempered a little bit there. Then they bring in Jay Woodcroft. They get Evander Kane. Mike Smith is healthy. He's playing great. And now they've kind of gone on this nice run. I think there's pressure absolutely in both markets, but I'd say maybe just a tinge more in Toronto, just based on how, sadly the seasons have ended the last few years for them.
I don't think we have odds on it, but should Jay Woodcroft be getting Jack Adams chatter, or did he not coach long enough this season?
I mean, listen, the record speaks for itself, right? They've been one of the best teams since he took over. And it's funny, we saw that blip with a few, whether Bruce Boudreau, et cetera. It's a crowded field. Daryl Sutter is certainly going to get a lot of accolades. Todd McClellan has done an exceptional job. Like, who would think the LA Kings would have made the playoffs? And Drew Doughty's been gone for half the year, right? Yeah. He's going to get a lot of love. You could even say Andrew Burnett, who took over a team. Granted, he took over a very good Florida team. They were 7-0 when he took over, but they didn't miss a beat as a first-time coach walking in, with the big shadow of Joel Quenneville, having to follow that. That is not an easy situation. And they've gone out and won the President's Trophy. There's a number of coaches that are going to get some love. Jay Woodcroft, in my opinion, has been exceptional. He's been exactly what they've needed. And he also was unafraid. He walked in there in the first few games. He actually decreased the ice time with McDavid and Draisaitl. Felt they were a little burned out and took a little bit of the pressure off of them. And the other guys took that opportunity and ran with it. The Hymans and the Canes, the Yamamotos, et cetera. And it worked out perfectly. So Jay Woodcroft deserves some love, but I'm not sure he is going to win it this year with such a crowded field.
When you look at the stacked Eastern Conference, I mean, it's just top to bottom. Like, any team, I think, could come out of there. When you look at the Leafs matchup on its own, it's going to come down to tonight, what happens tonight. Is there a more ideal competitor for the Leafs? Obviously, on one side, you have the 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and then you have the Demons and the Boston Bruins. There's a scenario tonight where Boston can slip into that 3rd seed in the Atlantic and end up playing the Leafs in the first round. I don't know. Do you think there's a more ideal scenario for the Leafs, or it's just you get who you get?
Pick your poison. Hey, like listen, there's no easy path. And if I know there's a lot of people in Toronto who are like, why can't we have the 1 versus 16 or 1 versus 8, right? If it was 1 versus 8, you wouldn't see Toronto and Tampa. You wouldn't see, I don't think, Toronto and Boston. It would be maybe an easier opponent, at least on paper. I think if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is no disrespect to the Boston Bruins, who are formidable, I still would rather play the Bruins, simply because when I look at Tampa, I just say, Andrei Vasilevsky, best goalie in the world. Victor Hedman, arguably still the best defenseman in the world. Kucherov's on this ridiculous streak right now, scored in the last 8 games. Stamkos, Point, they've won the last 2 years. They know how to win. That is a fearful opponent to me, a more fearful opponent. Boston's exceptional, and it would be an incredibly hard-fought series. But if I'm Toronto, I think I might say that path might be a little bit more, likable than staring down what I just spoke of with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Getting back to some wagering here, and Austin Matthews right now, that the heavy favorite to win the Hart. But I think this has been one of the most intriguing storylines, and maybe one of the most intriguing Hart races we've seen in a long time, with Shesterkin, McDavid, Huberdeau, Goudreau. You already mentioned it. Is there a guy that you think maybe can win as one of the underdogs, or is this Matthews' award to win this season?
I do think it's Matthews' award to win. I do think that 60th goal might have cemented it. And it's not like, well, he only scored 59. He's not the MVP. But I think when you are able to say, look, 21 players in history have scored 60 goals. Look at that list of players. He's on that list. We hadn't seen this in 12 years. We've only seen it 4 times in the last 25 years. Like, what we're witnessing is something unbelievable. Like, it's a generational score, and which is how he's been marketed and who he is. It's exceptional. And to do it, I think, in 73 games, it makes it even more incredible to me. I think he is the front runner in that sense. Having said that, McDavid's putting together his career best season points wise, and has been just such a good player. It's hard. Roman Josi at 95 points and counting, and the way he controls the ice when he's out there for the Nashville Predators. Shesterkin, a 936 save percentage. Like, I'm making cases for everyone, but I do think right now Austin Matthews, and it's not just the goals, guys. He does it even strength. He plays 200 feet. He leads the NHL in takeaways. To me, that almost needs to, that kind of gets that check mark there. Like, here's a guy, when the puck's not on his stick, you know what he does? He goes out and gets the puck onto his stick. And that's every winning team has players who do that and do that in spades, and he's doing it better than anyone this year. So I think the case is there for Austin Matthews. It's a very deep field, though. Johnny Gaudreau, 90 evens? Unbelievable. We haven't seen that in a decade, longer than a decade. So it's great. The candidacies are incredible, and I'm really interested to see. I've got to actually do my ballot this weekend, so I've got to get that sorted out. But I think right now, I think to me, Austin Matthews is the man to beat.
So you talk about how cool it is sometimes to look around the studio and what have you, but how cool is it to get to vote on these awards? That's amazing. We all do it on Twitter every day, and you get an actual vote.
Yeah, again, I feel like a bit of a heaviness to it, because you're going to upset people, and you're going to feel the wrath. And I've done it a couple of times, and I think I had Panarin as a Selke candidate a couple years ago, and be like, you don't even watch the games, you must not know anything. You know what Twitter's like. So if you ever make a mistake, Twitter's very good at telling you made a mistake. So you feel a bit of a responsibility, but I make a point of reaching out to people in different markets and getting a sense of, if they could fill in some of the blanks. I watch a lot of hockey, so I am confident. I think I watch it, and I'm fortunate enough to, when I sit and watch the games with Kelly Rudy, with Jennifer Botterill, with Kevin Bieksa, with Elliot, Ron, I'm watching games, Anthony Stewart. I'm watching games with people who have a very, analytical and bright lens. They're watching it through it, they're watching it differently than I'm watching it often. I'm learning from them, and I think there's value in that, in hearing what they have to say and going, oh yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. So at least I do feel I'm going in with somewhat of an educated opinion, but again, it's an opinion, and there's going to be differing opinions for sure. So someone's going to be pissed off at me. That's the bottom line.
Well, as long as you can handle that. You mentioned your co-hosts there in the panel, and I really think, 3 of them that you mentioned in Anthony Stewart, Jennifer Botterill, and Kevin Bieksa have just been, breakout stars of the last couple of years. I'm going to put you on the spot, though, right now.
Oh, God.
Pick anyone that you work with, and without getting yourself in any serious trouble, tell us something about one of them that we might be surprised to learn.
Oh, no. Oh, come on, Kris. You're doing this to me?
I love it. I love the back and forth that you guys have. I think it's an amazing dynamic right now, but I'm sure there's got to be something. You can sue or Elliot or something.
Suing Elliot would be a lot easier. I'm not suing anyone. First of all, they're all great people, and I've learned a lot, and I meant that. You do watch games, and you do learn a lot. Look at their resumes, right? They've won, they've been in the game their whole lives, and they've achieved at a level that very few get a chance to achieve at. So I learn a lot. I don't know. I'm trying to, something you wouldn't know about them. Oh my God. Well, first of all, Stewie, if you don't follow Stewie on Twitter, you're missing out, because I call him the gift king. He has First of all, he uses this old. So I've got your traditional whatever, your iPhone here. He uses a BlackBerry. He found out they were going out of market, and I think he went and scooped up like 10 Blackberries, and he's hoping that the mechanics still works. He's a very I ever sent him a note, and it comes out green, and you're like, why is this green? Oh yeah, he's a BlackBerry guy, which is hilarious. So he's an old school BlackBerry guy, but the thing he loves about BlackBerry is you get all these different, I guess, GIFs. You call it GIF, right? My kids are GIF. Whatever.
I say GIF.
That's another discussion for another day.
There you go. Exactly. And he's hilarious. Do any of you guys follow him on Twitter? If you don't, you should.
Absolutely. I mean, just the work he does on JD's face alone is worth the price of admission.
The mashups. He's done a few with me as well, and they are hilarious. So you already knew that, I suppose. I'm not going to sue or anyone because that's not really. I don't really have any good dirt on these guys. Maybe a little on the outside.
Well, I mean, it didn't have to be sewer. Maybe one of them has like a really cool talent. I don't know. Or an interest.
Gosh, no, I don't think they're that talented. I don't know. I mean, honestly, when we're in studio, it's pretty hockey centric. I'm sure, the bottom line with Jen is I think whatever she puts her mind to, she's a superstar. And she has these 3 young girls. She's like super mom. She's going on these crazy hikes with them where she's like pushing them in strollers and carrying them on her shoulders and stuff. She's kind of superwoman, basically. Stewie and Bieksa and Ron and Elliot, we have a lot of good laughs, and Kelly too. And that's what I think makes it fun. The next 2 months, we're all going to probably get sick of one another on some level, but it's going to be a really fun journey, to starting out with 16 teams and getting down to those final teams. And like we started the segment with, I do hope this is the year we have some Canadian content in the final. That would be awesome for us. Who would have thought it'd be since 1993 that we have the Stanley Cup residing in Canada, and we have 3 very good candidates this year to possibly end that streak. And I think it'd be really cool to experience that with them. They've all represented Canada. Anthony and Kelly and Jen and Kevin in different tournaments, and they've all had great success: World Championships, Olympics, World Juniors, etc. Canada Cups. I think it would be really neat to sort of see what impact it has on them. Kelly was there in '93 when his team lost to Montreal, and he still feels the emotion of coming that close to winning a Stanley Cup. So I think it might be pretty cool to see a Canadian team win it and be alongside these guys for the ride. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that would be very cool. Although Kelly should know that he should never even have been in that series. But that's
I tell him every week.
People don't forget.
I said, I love you, Kelly, but I hated you, Kelly. And he just goes, thank you.
David, we want to be conscious of your time, but I couldn't let you go. You alluded to the fact that you might get sick of each other. If you can give us a little glimpse, lastly here, about what it's like to do that every single night for the entire playoffs. I mean, you guys work hard during the year, but this is just a whole other level. I suppose not like the players, though. You guys still get paid for the playoffs, right?
Well, they prorate our salaries out over the whole year, unlike the players who just get paid for that 8 months. So there's far fewer zeros, though, I assure you that. Yeah. You know what? It's great. First of all, the adrenaline. I've been waiting for the playoffs. This is the first time ever we've seen 8 teams with over 100 points in the Eastern Conference all making it to the playoffs. The way I was on another show and I said this, I said, you could look at the 16 teams in the postseason. You can make a case for 10, 11 of them to win a cup, and it wouldn't be this outlandish notion, right? Like, is it crazy to think Minnesota wins the Stanley Cup? Not in my eyes. I really believe that. Like, I think that team is that good. And there's a whole bunch of other teams you can make strong cases for. So we're going to have a certain level of adrenaline pushing us through, because there's going to be some incredible disappointment. There's going to be some incredibly hard-fought series here. A lot of teams are sort of all in their approach, whether it's Minnesota going and plucking Fleury and Delorier, et cetera, or whether it's, Calgary, I mentioned not letting Gaudreau go. There's a ton of stories like that on a bunch of different teams who are really sort of saying, this is our year. So the theater is going to be fantastic. I've always said sports is the best reality TV there is, guys. And I truly believe that. So all of our own little idiosyncrasies kind of get forgotten, because you always remember, hey, we're in this together and it's this fun journey we're on. And I'm not trying to oversell it. Like, I really mean that. I go in and I'm pretty pumped. I'm really pumped for the playoffs. And I think there'll be the adrenaline of the series and the games, and how much is on the line will kind of help ride through what's going to be a lot of nights with little sleep. But that's okay, right? Like, you guys work in the industry you work in, and I'm sure there's people who would love to be sitting in your chairs and doing what you do and call it your profession. And it's the same for me. You put in a lot of hours during the playoffs, but it doesn't feel like work half the time. Half the time you're in there and it's just exciting and fun. And, and you're living it out with the fans in real time. And there's nothing that can replace that unscripted theater, before our eyes. So I'm pumped for it, for real.
Don't worry, we'll be putting in a ton of hours as well. We'll just be on our couch watching you guys on TV. So it was awesome for you to come on. I know we could have probably talked for another half an hour, but we will have to have you back on. This was awesome. We're going to be seeing a lot of you, but it'll be on TV. But thank you so much for coming on, David. This was so much fun.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. And I like the work you're doing, and continued success for you guys as well. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm pumped, and I'm gonna have to wait to see what the lines are for these series, and then see what I can jump on early.
Thanks so much, David. By the way, sneaky line tonight: Bruins on the road -125, and maybe the Leafs. Maybe the Leafs are okay with that. We'll see what happens.
No Matthews, no Marner. We'll see.
Thanks, David.
That was David Amber of Hockey Night in Canada. As we mentioned, we're going to be seeing a lot of his face on the desk with such a great crew for Hockey Night in Canada playoffs. It's honestly, this time of year is the best. It's the absolute best to be a playoff fan. I should say there's some other times during the year that's maybe a debate that we can have during the slow season of sports, but I think this one might take the cake as the best time to be a sports fan.
First round of the NHL playoffs. You got 3-4 games every night. You get that West Coast game that goes to triple overtime.
Yeah.
You fall asleep, you wake up, you think it's the highlights, but the game's still on. It's so much fun. I mean, it's almost anticlimactic as the playoffs go on, because when you get to the conference finals, you got to one game every couple of days, and it's but the first round, man, it is my favorite. But I almost say it used to be my favorite. I think it still is for intensity, but man, 17 Sundays every fall and winter, that's really hard to beat, especially when you're a degenerate like I am.
I think October, I would have to throw my hat in there, and now we're having this debate, but I would say October's in there. You've got playoff baseball, start of NBA, start of NHL. You mentioned it, NFL, college football. So that's in the mix there for me. Jake, do you have a favorite time of year when it comes to being a sports fan?
I don't know, that March to April jump there when we do get into baseball season. We got Masters, March Madness. I don't know. It's tough to say because I've gotten into college football recently, so you don't really have any college football then. I don't know. It's hard to beat football season at any point. I'll be honest with you. When you got NFL and NCAA going in full swing, the Saturday, Sunday, it's just a lot of time spent on the couch.
Yeah. Speaking of football season, it's not football season, but of course, once again, the NFL does NFL things and completely steals the storylines. Like, this was supposed to be one of the most boring, star-lacking NFL drafts we've seen in a very long time. And next thing you know, doesn't the NFL just do what they do best? And it was an unbelievable night of trades and surprises.
Well, I mean, you can't be surprised when a league that has an announcement to announce that they're going to announce their schedule and it gets major media attention. Like it's such a huge monolith. But I was drinking last night, but I was at a bar and I could have sworn that I saw AJ Brown to the Eagles. I mean, good for you, Philly. I mean, you're still the softest city in America when it comes to your athletes and teams. But I mean, AJ Brown will help.
Certainly not going to hurt.
Yeah.
Now you have him and Devonta Smith.
That's a big get for Philly. And I think they're going to stick with their guy Hurts and see what he can do. But I mean, Tennessee, they trade away a wide receiver and then immediately draft one right after. Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks. And his player comparison, they were showing it last night, was to an AJ Brown. They even showed Debo on there, which I was surprised. I'm like, how do you player comparison to Debo? There's no one like Debo. I don't know how you can call him a Debo Samuel, but it's an interesting move by Tennessee. Obviously, they like Burks a little younger, I guess, and see what he can do for them.
I mean, if we can get another 4 or 5 Debo Samuels in the league, I will take it because that guy is unbelievable. San Francisco has completely messed that whole situation up. But yeah, back to Jalen Hurts. I don't know. I fall in love with these guys, right? So I fell in love with him at college because I always thought he was better than Tua, and he proved
Probably
me right.
still is.
Tua could never finish out the season, and Jalen Hurts had to come in and clean up the mess. But yeah, as much as like people like our buddy Joe Osborne are on TuaNon, I don't know. Maybe I'm the Hurts locker.
Let's go.
Yeah,
the Hurts locker. That's got to be a thing. And if
yeah,
it's
we
not,
got to have something because I'm. I know he didn't look good at points last year. I really want to believe in him. So we'll see. I mean, he's got great legs. He can throw the ball. Sometimes he just doesn't make very smart throws. But I think that's something that comes with, learning to read defenses and who knows what kind of coaching he was getting along the way. But yeah, I'm excited. Like I want the Eagles to be good, mostly because I don't want the Cowboys to just kind of run through the division. So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Jake, are you, since we were talking about the Dolphins there, are you starting to get a little bit scared about this division? I think obviously the Dolphins have made some moves, I should say. And then the Jets yesterday, like what they were doing, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson.
I mean, the Jets.
No,
Jets are going to Jets.
With the Jets. Like my only concern remains the Buffalo Bills. I mean, that's it. I mean, and then I don't know.
Can you say that?
Laughing.
Can you say that again?
No, you heard it. You can clip it. You can clip it. You can just play it and rewind on your Twitter. No, I don't know if you saw yesterday. McVay's on there just giggling his little face off after we drafted the guard from Chattanooga. Like, know your place, McVay. What you win one Super Bowl? You think you're a big shot now? Like, take it easy, bud. Like, we never draft well in the first round. Outside of Mac Jones, we never draft well in the first round. So even if this Chattanooga guy's a bust, I mean, it's par for the course with this Patriots team. We draft heavy, 2nd to 6th round or 7th round, and I don't know. Just hope we get a receiver. I wanted Mechie. I'm still waiting to see what happens there, but
I'm here for all the Sean McVay slander. Anyway, let's have it. Give me all the McVay.
Did you see the clip, Chris? He'd clearly he'd had a couple drinks or something. He was pretty giddy. I was like, who are you, buddy? Like, you're still early in your coaching career. You could be out of here in no time.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. And as we know, the Patriots don't need much bulletin board material to spin something into some motivation. But a lot of NFL talk. Again, look at what the league does. We're in the heart of NBA playoffs. The first round is just wrapping up. NHL playoffs is just around the corner. We've got a ton of boxing and MMA events coming through. And next thing you know, all we're talking about is the NFL. That's why they're king. That's why they own our brains. But with all that being said, it's a pretty busy weekend in the world of sports. The Friday night slate for the NHL is huge. Just about every single team, it looks like, is playing here tonight. Baseball, obviously, in full swing as well. So without further ado, let's get into our weekend wagers. Chris, I think you kind of spoiled your best bet of the weekend when we were talking with David Amber. Do you want to give that one out now?
I mean, it makes sense. If I'm the Maple Leafs, I don't want to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if I'm got the opportunity to control my destiny there and maybe Boston slips in, I mean, everyone's going to say, oh, no, not Boston again. And I'd be the first one to be like, oh, the Bruins are going to eliminate the Leafs. Not this year. The Leafs have absolutely handled the Bruins. You go from Andre Vasilevsky to like Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. You kidding me? No, give me the Bruins. And so it's reflected by the short money line. Bruins were -125. They see they're creeping up to -132 now. David said that no Matthews and Marner in this game. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, this line should be higher if you ask me. Eric Shalgren starting in net too. Like I don't know because. But yeah, I'm on the Bruins here. But also, Pat, we got a big one going in Buffalo tomorrow night. The Toronto Rocky even money underdog, still eyeing that upset of the Buffalo Bandits. So I'm gonna have to back the boys in that one too.
Yeah, that one's not my best bet when it comes to the National Lacrosse League.
Oh no, that's a hard bet. That's a hard bet.
That's a hard bet for sure. But that's not even it. And I for me. Again, just look at the example with the Leafs and the Bruins. Like both, obviously, Bruins playing for a lot more. The Leafs are just kind of punting away here. But both these teams, Toronto, Buffalo, they don't really have anything to prove. But anytime those two teams touch the floor, like it's war. It doesn't matter that they're going to, the coaches could tell them all you want, let's take it easy here, boys. Let's not show our hands. These two teams absolutely hate each other. And another thing of note, Dane Smith is just a couple of points away, I think 3, to break his own record for most points in a single season for the Buffalo Bandits. So they're going to look to be pumping in goals. The Rock would love nothing more than to spoil that night down in Buffalo and not allow him to break that. So I'd be thinking maybe the under, but then again, it's a game that doesn't have any importance. I'm not too sure what to expect, but I absolutely love the Georgia Swarm on the money line. This is a win and in game for both teams. Georgia can still get in if they lose, but if they win, they'll solidify that 4th seed, potentially could actually catch Halifax and go into that 3rd seed if Halifax was to lose. But Philadelphia, they need to win. If they lose, they're out. They win, they're in. They could get that crossover. But for me, Georgia's been the better team down the stretch. They've got the best player on the planet in Lyle Thompson. His brother, Miles Thompson, is back in the lineup. They've been a dynamic duo. Give me Georgia Swarm at even money to win this game. I'm taking it. I would even consider sprinkling the money, the ball line, I guess we'll call it, at -1.5 at +160. Jake, where are you going for your weekend wager?
I'm going to the association. We got some series odds now for the second round. I'm looking at this Celtics-Bucks series. I know there's no Chris Middleton. They said he'll be out for the second round series against the Celtics. They do have the higher seed over the Bucks, so they're going to have home advantage. I'm looking at Bucks +1.5 series line, -133. I still think Giannis is probably the best player in this series, even though Jason Tatum proven that he is a guy last series against the Nets in that sweep. Obviously they're going to have they're going to be a little fresher than the Bucks, but I still think it's Giannis and what they were able to do last season. This guy, I tell you, when we talk about hockey tough, Giannis is the type of guy where he looked like he buckled his knee last year in the finals, came back and just took over. For a guy that, like, these NBA guys, I don't know, like, I don't want to get, they're a little soft in my eyes when you compare them to the NHL. But Giannis, I can't say that about him because he's a warrior. He's a guy that goes out there and plays with heart on his sleeve. And I don't know. I think they can give him a run. Boston's a great team. They're great defensively, but I think the Bucks give him a little bit of trouble. And I'll take him. Might as well take him on the series price. Like I said, +1.5. See if this one can push 7. Guarantee it. Or maybe the Bucks are up 3-2 going back home for Game 6. We'll see.
Yeah, and staying with the NBA, I swore that if the Sixers made it through, I was hammering the Miami Heat. They're -164 to win the series, are the Heat. But you guys follow me on BetStamp. I've been building up the bankroll a little bit. I might be feeling good about laying the -164 here, a couple units, just to fade these Philadelphia 76ers. I want nothing more than to watch them lose, and just in a pitiful way. That's what I want. Big Jimmy Butler, big Kyle Lowry guy right now.
Yeah, I think that if you are a Toronto Raptors fan, that's going to be the automatic, natural choice. You've got Lowry there, and then you can just cheer your absolute brains out against Embiid and against Harden and that very, very hateable Sixers squad. But I want to go in on the off of your pick there with the Bucks. I actually would not be afraid to sprinkle the Bucks to win the NBA championship right now at +750. That's a great number. Obviously you've got Golden State, who looks like vintage Golden State right now at +285. The Celtics look like world beaters at +325. The Suns at +350, but the health of Booker certainly scares me. And then it drops off significantly there. So some value there. I certainly am thinking I might sprinkle it a little bit. If they get bounced, they get bounced. But at that value, you talked about it. Giannis is he's the best player in the world, or one of the best players. And we know this is a superstar league. We saw him take over last year. I could see him doing it again.
Well, I'm wondering if the Celtics, if that series line is a bit of an overcorrection because of what they did to Brooklyn. Brooklyn was never good at playing defense all season. Like, they couldn't get a stop for what their life depended on it. So when you have a team like Boston who can go get stops and can defend your best players, and then you can't get a stop on the other end, well, you're bound to lose basketball games. So, Boston's definitely more of a team. like their team cohesion is probably one of the best out there. But just having that one superstar like Giannis who can do it all, I don't know. I think it'll be tighter than expected, I'll say.
Yeah, I certainly agree. So you can check out all those odds at Coolbet. We will be posting our best bets, clipping these wagers throughout the weeks. And of course, Kris mentioned on BetStamp, you can check out his picks there, and we'll be firing out our picks on Twitter and BetStamp as well. Gentlemen, it was good to be back. It was good to be back. We took a couple of weeks off, but we're back into it, and it's going to be a busy stretch here at Coolbet Canada. Before we go, any final words, gentlemen? Kris, I'll let you go first.
My final word is, while we were discussing that, I just laid a disgustingly not non-significant amount on the Miami Heat to win that series. So I am now big time Heat guy. Pat Riley still around?
Yeah, he's executive. He's up top.
Yeah.
He's up
all right.
top.
Alonzo
yeah,
Mourning. Yeah, I'm a big Miami Heat guy right now.
Udonis Haslem's still there. I don't know. He's been
Never
around
heard
for
of
a
him.
long time. He's been with that team for a long time.
Mr. Heat. Jake, any final words?
Yeah, we were talking NLL. I just wanted to get to something quick. I had a buddy reach out. We posted our odds for a Canadian team to win the NLL Cup. 8 teams make the playoffs. And I get this response from this guy. I think there's 3 Canadian teams, if I have that correct, that are going to be
3 Canadian.
Should be in the playoffs.
Yep.
And I think our line was -110 or something. And he makes a comment about the line. And I'm like, well, there's like a process that goes into it. And I'm like, is this guy an NLL guy? Like, I'm like, does he know something about lacrosse? I'm like, I don't. And he just keeps coming back at me. And I just like keep snapping back because I'm not happy. I know who makes the lines. Like, these are like, I'm going to bat for the team. And sure enough, he just fully thought it was NHL. We had a graphic up. The Bears holding a lacrosse stick. And he's like, you know what, man? He's like, I thought it was the NHL. That's totally my bad. I'm like, yeah, you're an idiot. I was like, you're an idiot. So we had this full argument, like back and forth. And then just for him to be like, oh, wait, never mind. I thought it was the NHL, which we also have a line out for. I might as well say that now. +250
yes.
for Canadian team to win the cup. So
yeah,
that's a point in the NHL futures tab.
Yeah. And perfect transition there, Jake. Obviously, last weekend here, a lot of games here on Friday when we're recording. Sunday, just one game. But after that, once the series are all set, we will be trickling out some of our playoff specials. So keep an eye out for that. And also keep an eye out for our socials, as we will have our playoff super show. Maybe we'll get Hustler on. I don't know if he's going to be still surviving after his time down in Las Vegas. Kris, I know you were probably jealous that he's taken over your stomping grounds. But
well, he's got the video up this morning of him at Stadium Swim last night at Circa for the draft. Like, he's down there greasing palms. He might never come back. So I know we're recording the lock shop here in a little bit. So we'll see. We'll get the update from Hustler. Don't worry. I've got a list of questions to ask him.
I think our next content meeting, we have to have a plan where we do just like a 24/7 documentary of following Huss around in Las Vegas, because I think that would be electric content. It'd have to be pay-per-view though.
We'd have to get lawyers involved.
No, that's perfect. Yeah. So anyways, if you are watching this, you can also check out Winnipeg Sports Talk. Huss is down in Las Vegas doing his show there. And as you mentioned as well, Kris, the Lock Shop going down as well. So you can listen to that wherever you stream your podcast, like this one on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, or of course, YouTube as well. So hit that subscribe button, give us a review, share it with your friends, do whatever you may with it, but tune in. We appreciate it. For everyone here at Coolbet Canada, we want to thank you for tuning in once again. I'm Pat Gregoire. He's Jake Bolamas. He's Kris Abbott. And as always, stay cool.